And since I could speak, write, and sing in French,
Mhm.
he was like, well, you're just going to do the vocals. We don't have time to get a singer. And I was like, oh my God, okay.
I'm Adam, and this is all about you, your journey in music, and how you got to where you are now.
Okay.
Right on. So first of all, why don't you tell me where you're born and raised?
So actually I was born in Kansas
Okay.
and left when my parents left when I was 2. So I lived 1 year in Honduras and then we moved to California. So raised in California.
Oh, cool. What part? I'm from California as well.
Oh, cool. Madeira.
Madeira.
So
Okay.
right in the Central Valley.
Right on. Yeah, I'm from San Diego, so similar-ish.
I mean,
It's California,
it is
right?
California, yeah.
What was it like growing up in Madeira?
It was nice. I mean, I'm happy I had that experience. Like my family and I were super close. So on the weekends we would always go camping to Bass Lake, Yosemite, like a lot of the lakes, Hensley Lake, Santa Cruz, bike everywhere. So yeah, that was really great. Just like being able to also go mountain biking with my dad after school. So
That's
it was
awesome.
a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's really cool. How long were you in Honduras? You said Honduras?
Yeah, so my parents are from Honduras, and I have a lot of family still there. So they wanted to try to see, well, my dad he wanted to try to see if maybe we could live in Honduras. And
Okay.
we were there for about a year, and I have like a little like I have some memories of it. I mean, I obviously went back after, but living there, yeah, I was 4, like from 3 to 4. And I mean it was a lot of fun. I do have a lot of memories from that. Just
That's
like,
cool.
yeah, going because we were living in this beautiful ranch and it's tropical, so you have like just a lot of green and vegetation and it's just so beautiful and the thunderstorms are amazing. So
That's really
yeah.
cool. That's really cool. But 3 to 4, so you weren't there too long, obviously.
No, no, not that long.
Cool. So, well, how did you get into music?
So I when we moved to California, I just because I was always dancing and making up my own songs and singing, my mom put me into dance class and I never stopped. So I like fell in love with music and it just felt like, I don't know, things didn't make sense without it. And it's always been such like a strong, I've always had such a strong relationship with it. But I also really loved fashion.
Hmm.
And on it, and I didn't even know what fashion was, but I just knew I wanted to design and make clothes. And my mom used to sew, so I would just like crawl under her table, pick up scraps, and she would teach me how to stitch. I loved the sound of the sewing machine. So those were 2 things that I was always considering, either doing music, like having a music career, or being a fashion designer. But as I, got older, I just really wanted to do fashion, and I decided to put music on the side and study fashion design. And so I moved to Paris, France, studied
Wow.
there, and that honestly brought like being in France brought me even closer to music, just because I got to like experience a different style, something that I really because I've always loved indie music and like kind of like folklore and more 70s. So
Hmm.
like yeah, David Bowie in the 70s, Kate Bush, and right now I'm blanking out, wow, Stevie Nicks. So I've always loved that, and with like French pop, retro pop, there's just this intimacy that I really loved. And so I kind of really was drawn to that, and that became the inspiration for my design aesthetic. So when after graduating and doing a couple of internships, realized like I'm more of an artist versus just wanting to do one job and slowly working my way up, and with maybe the possibility of becoming head designer. But even
Mm-hmm.
if you are the head designer, if you're not artistic director, you don't really have control.
Sure.
So I decided to move to LA and start my own brand. And I'd always loved watching old vintage perfume campaigns, that they were like a mini movie.
Right.
So I contacted an independent film company in LA and told them I was, a new designer launching my brand. And if they wanted to collaborate with me on this idea that I had for a fashion film. And they really loved the idea, and we just started brainstorming. So it was all based around the song Je t'aime moi non plus by Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin. It came out like 1968, I think.
Okay.
And so we did the whole film for that. I did my collection and had it ready for the film. And then that was to be shown during LA Fashion Week, which also is a huge gamble because I was completely new, didn't know anybody here. And I just started reaching out to people and found this one, just because LA has different like fashion weeks, we don't have an official one. So
Mm-hmm.
I found one, concept shows, which I really liked their aesthetic, and it just seemed to be more in line with what you would see in New York or Paris Fashion Week. So I contacted him and told him, I'm a new designer. And yeah, it was, he asked for me to show some of my past collections, but this was my first ever. So I told him I was working on a film and I would send him stills from that so he could get an idea of what I did. And so I think it was a month before Fashion Week. So I sent him the stills, like once we had something to show, and was planning the whole show, model casting, everything, without really knowing if I could actually show. And I'm like a week before, he called me and said, no, you have a slot, you're going to show. And then I couldn't get the license for the song in time. So that's how I got into music. So we ended up going to a film composer, and he knew right away what the song was, the style, the flow. And that day we just started working on the song. And since I could speak, write, and sing in French,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, well, you're just going to do the vocals. We don't have time to get a singer. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And I mean, I had always written poetry before. So I thought, well, I guess I'll do that. I'll just write it. I'll start with a poem and turn it into a song. And did that and fell in love and haven't stopped.
Wow. So
So
that was the first song you ever wrote, was for the
yeah.
film? Oh my gosh, that's
Mhm.
incredible.
Yeah.
And
It
did
was
you do you play
crazy.
an instrument? Was it just you always sang growing up, or?
Yeah, I always sang. I mean, I was in choir and I would do like theater, school theater and things like that. But my thing was mainly like illustrating, dance, and finding a way to do fashion. So I had kind of stopped when I was in like my late, like mid-teens, kind of stopped training my voice.
Oh, okay.
So, and would just do it for fun. But it wasn't until, yeah, that for that particular collection that then I went back into music, and I realized like, oh yeah, I need some vocal training because I wasn't a trained singer, since I had left that a long time ago.
Sure, sure.
And and then and I loved it so much that I wanted to have more control over the music I was writing, versus just not knowing the terminology or not really knowing how to use any of the DAWs. So I went to the Musicians Institute in LA and took the artist development course, which helps you to produce your own music and just gives you an overview of like of everything kind of behind the scenes. And during that time, I started working on some new songs, and they ended up being my EP that I released in November 2019.
Oh, really?
And
That was the
yeah,
Cannibal EP?
yes, that was
Okay.
Cannibal. And so once I had those demos, I took them back to my producer, who was the composer of all the songs that we had done for my fashion campaigns.
Okay.
And I was like, I think I have something. Maybe you'll like it. I know it's completely different just because we've always done songs that were more like film scores.
Uh-huh.
And yes, with like, and sometimes they would have vocals, my vocals, but not all the time. So we started working on that and really helped develop the sound I wanted, which includes a lot of like those nostalgic 70s tones with a little bit more modern, like Blade Runner
Mm-hmm.
2049 was a big inspiration. So having a lot of like those synths in it too.
Okay. Rad.
Yeah.
Rad. So that whole Cannibal record you said was you wrote most of it at that during that class?
So it was it was a whole it was a 2-year course. So I had lots of classes.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
it
you
was
took
just,
like the
yeah.
whole like artist development. I thought you just took one class at the university in
No,
artist.
no.
Okay, so you took the whole thing. Okay,
I
never
took
mind.
if I'm gonna do something, I want to do it
Sure. I mean, it
right.
makes sense. Yeah. That's why I was confused. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that's pretty good. I mean,
No,
writing that many
no. I
songs
just
and
yeah, no, also I just also for respect, I don't know, like when I was in we try to do we did it like we did a live performance before I went to MI, and I just like for respect for myself and for the musicians I was working with, I just wanted to be a stronger player
Mhm.
to like understand what they're talking about. And so then I can tell them like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I think will be cool. So yeah, I just decided I have to go to school.
That's cool. It's the first song you wrote though was in French. Wow. When did
It
you learn
was
how to
in
speak
French. Yeah.
French?
Yes.
Is that something you had to learn when you were living in Paris?
I did. I took French in high school, and then when I got to Paris, I realized all I can say is I'm lost and where is the bathroom? So it was a
Pretty
crash
important
course.
things though.
Really, yeah, they were really important, especially because I think we were like 5 international students at one point, and I was the only one who knew how to say those two phrases, so I was kind of doing it for us.
You're like, does anybody
Um,
here need to go to the bathroom? I've got this.
yes. And but actually my school was in French, so I had to like really pick it up because there were so many things I was missing and needed, and I only had one teacher who was German, so he would speak French and English, which
Mhm.
helped. And I'd ask him like, oh, what did they say in this class? But yeah, I think like within like the first 3 months I was able to kind of pick up certain terminology, and then by 6 months I was like, okay, I'm good in class. And then but it took me at least a year to become pretty fluent.
Wow, that's fascinating. I always wanted to learn another language. I tried Spanish a bunch of times. I mean, I can get by in Spanish, but not like if you threw me in to Tijuana, I wouldn't be able to like hang. You know what I mean? I could like
Yeah.
get by, but I've always wanted to be like really fluent. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, well, like once I started to understand their humor and like laugh at their jokes is when I knew, oh my gosh, okay, I'm fluent now. I
Yeah,
actually
that's cool.
understand.
It's like hard because you need to pick up like the slang. It's not just like the book, terminology. It's like that you'll
No.
get you by, but when people are using words in different sentence, like stuff that you wouldn't think, you're like, wait, what?
Oh yeah. And that happened. Like there were so many moments when I felt like, oh, I got this. And then I would meet new people. And because in school, you wouldn't really hear that much slang, especially
Mhm.
from the teachers, from the
Sure.
students, yes. but then I started to meet other people that lived outside of Paris and they spoke completely different. And so and my roommate, she was French. So I just stopped and asked her, I was like, this is like a whole new language. And she couldn't stop laughing. And she was like, yeah, because you're not used to our slang.
Right.
Like, okay, now you need to teach me your slang.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's impressive that you're able to pick it up that quickly. I mean, a year seems long, but in reality, that's really not that long to learn a whole entire language.
It's not, but I think it just, when you're, thrown into that situation, and there are not that many people I came across that could speak English,
Mhm.
or if they could, it was, very limited. So like if you're going as a tourist and you're going to the tourist places, people that work in those stores and restaurants will tend to speak some English, but you'd be surprised, it's not that much. So I just had to learn, like if I was going to the grocery store or bakery, like nobody could speak English there. And you just had to.
You had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. So you put out Cannibal in 2019. Tell me about the recent stuff you have coming out. You put a song called Love Chain out in 2020. Where were you when this virus happened?
So I was dealing with some family things. We lost my grandpa in February, so Love
Oh my
Chain
gosh.
came
I'm sorry
like
about that.
3 days
Awful.
after that. Yeah,
Oh
thank
wow.
you. And when I got back, and so we ended up going to Honduras to be with our family and my grandma. And when I came back, just lockdown started right away.
Hmm.
I think 2 weeks after I came back from Honduras. And I decided to go back to my parents' house in Madeira just because of the yard, and we could go just to be together mainly,
Sure.
honestly.
Yeah.
And
It was a weird time.
they're so weird. And so what I ended up doing with all this time that I had now, I just started writing and putting everything I felt into pen and paper, and which turned into a whole album. And so and my producer slash composer, he we decided to go into this project how we had done before, where really collaborating together, where he's orchestrating the music and arranging it. Because in Cannibal, I had written the music, but in this one, and he's like a classically trained pianist and everything. So we were like, yeah, we want to make this big and we want it to feel very cinematic, just because there's so much emotion into it.
Hmm.
And and I felt like, just like how I needed, I thought I'm sure others need, just to know like you can still be happy and hopeful, and dream. And so that was the whole intention of this album, to really make people just feel okay with their emotions, whether it be sad, whether like love, happiness, like melancholy, just to know that it's okay to feel that way. And yeah, so we recorded the whole album during quarantine. We did everything like via Zoom.
Wow. Was that
um I,
interesting?
it was tough. It was very tough. Yeah, we had so many setbacks, so many obstacles. Not so much. So with me, I was just recording my vocals at home, and then we set aside, I think it was in November. It was in November. We set aside, and I went to his studio, and both he and I had to be like, we were completely isolated this whole time, like since lockdown started until November, just because I also had I don't have issues myself, but the people like my dad, he's diabetic, so I just didn't want to risk anything.
Yeah, I
um
completely understand that for
yeah, and
sure.
himself as well. So when we met, we like had our masks on, gloves, and like always staying 6 feet apart. And so I just went straight into like the vocal booth, And we were just calling each other like, okay, yeah, that was good.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
Yeah, so it was quite an experience. So we
Sure.
did the vocals all in 2 days, and and all the instruments on this album are live instruments too. So the drums, we had our drummer in New York. He, like, a lot of people actually were supposed to go on tour, but because of COVID, had free time, and they
Right.
were able to jump onto this album. I have some
Oh,
exciting
cool.
people. Yeah, like I was really excited to get John Fumo on this to play all the trumpets, and like he's played with like Whitney Houston and like Neil
Wow.
Diamond. Yeah, crazy. So,
Yeah.
and he really liked the style because the whole thing was we wanted it to feel like kind of a retro, like big band feel. And
Hmm.
yeah, and the trumpets definitely help, the brass and winds definitely help with that.
Sure. That's cool. So you have the whole record finished then?
Yes. So Fading Memories is, I released that in March 2021.
Yeah, that's the most recent
Um,
song I've heard.
yes. And that's the lead single to the album Yours Always. Um, and yeah, like this album was supposed to be out in April, but we've kind of pushed it a bit just to work again on the mix. Um, because the way that we recorded it was really working with like spatial audio. So
Hmm.
you have the sensation of just being surrounded by all these instruments and like being able to kind of pick like, oh, it's coming from here, like really making it as immersive as possible.
Interesting.
And so with like Apple's new lossless thing finally out, we
Hmm.
decided, okay, let's like push it even more, to see how far, like to just make sure like we can give the listener like the best experience possible. So if you are listening to it through like right now Apple's lossless thing, um you'll be able to experience that, just to feel this immersion into the album. And it is a concept album, so we used a lot of like different sounds and synths to kind of thread all the songs together into the story. And a big theme in the story is time and memories. So when you're transitioning from song to song, you kind of have that sensation of like, oh, I'm going to the past and now I'm going to the present. So you can kind of tell like when I'm referring to more of the past
Oh,
and
cool.
yeah.
That's really awesome. I don't know much about the lossless thing that the Apple did.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they've started to remaster certain records. Like mainly it's like Bowie and
Uh-huh.
Fleetwood Mac, like a lot of movie soundtracks, just because it's like it just gives it that additional like immersion, because you feel like all this sound is coming from different, like from the back, from the ceiling, like from different
Right.
areas. And yeah, I think it's like I love VR too. So that was kind of, and again, that like I love retro and nostalgic, but I love mixing that in with new technology. So
Hmm.
that's something that I've been wanting to do, and like combining both the fashion and music to kind of create this 360 experience for people.
Hmm.
So if you can, especially, and that's another reason why I wanted to do music, because I didn't want people to feel like if they couldn't afford what I make in my brand, you can still enjoy it and feel like you're a part of it through the music, because there's so much more to what I do with my collections. It's not just about making pieces and selling them. It's always creating a story. So, and I just want everybody to be able to enjoy the story if they want to.
I love that. That's really awesome. And thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to hear the whole record and the
Thank you so
concept.
much.
Yeah. I do have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah. I would say, and I mean, I tell myself this all the time too, but it's okay to be patient with yourself and your craft, because I think like as an artist, what you want to do is create something that you want to put out into the world that will last, rather than it just being following the trends or trying to, get as many views as you can. Like I think we kind of, like now especially, we tend to lose sight of that. Like why do you want to create art, and what do you want to say with it, and how do you want to connect with people? So it's so important, I think, to kind of to figure out what kind of artist you are, like what moves you, and what is it that you want to like to throw out into the world that hopefully can connect with somebody else.
Bringing it backward.